is the one I want. Yep, so this is a small talk image running my weather station. And you can see right now, I hope, that it's just received some updates from some of the weather sensors. So you can see that this one, for example, is just outside my office window, checking the weather, the temperature of the air outside, and it's currently saying 30 degrees, which is quite warm for middle of the morning.
Oh.
And then this one here is literally a simple ping. Being out in the countryside, we have a septic tank system for our sewage and so on. And so one of the things you need is a pump involved in that. So I just have an ESP plugged into the power outlet for the pump that every 10 minutes just says, "Hi, I'm here." And then I have this morph. If it goes more than 20 minutes without getting a ping, it turns red and says septic pump power not okay. Let's see. So for the weather station, you can see I've got a whole graphing set up of the temperatures of different sensors around the house. The outdoors at the back of my garage, I've got a weather station in the living room upstairs, in my workshop to check the humidity so my wood doesn't expand and contract too much before I make furniture. In the office, in the guest room, in the downstairs living room, all that kind of thing. And then some nice dials to show things off a bit better. Let's see, what can I tell you about how it works? To be honest, the best way of learning how it works, it would be to download it, which I have put the URL in the Google Doc. It's currently certified in air quotes for Squeak 5.3. It works as best I'm able to tell in 6. And probably the biggest use of it is that the LabVIEW folks took the code and extended it a little to add some broker capabilities, which I one day got to feed back in. And that code is now a non-trivial part of running the electrical power grid in Scotland and several US states, which is a little unnerving.
Cool.
Let's see. I would be very happy to get some collaboration on some aspects of it. I have not done what I would consider a satisfactory job in the basic socket connection that's used. I'm using a socket stream because it makes it easy to write a loop that sits there waiting for input from the socket. I'm sure there are slightly more resilient ways of doing that, but this weather station has been running for maybe 6 years, I think. I'm not entirely sure. A long time anyway, without any reliability problems. So maybe I'm worrying about the wrong things. Let's see. I think that's all I'm going to say about it, really, because the best thing, if you're interested in MQTT, is just to read the code, load it up in Squeak, read it, play with it, and so on. I do point to a Squeak wiki page where I wrote quite a lot about the weather station stuff and how the MQTT works in that, and even provide the ESP826 program to use. So in theory, you could go to that page, read about it, and replicate what I've got, should that be your interest. You could use it for a simple security system, putting a monitor on each of your windows and doors. You know, is the garage door open? Is the car in the garage? If you use passive IR sensors, you could find out if there are people in each of the rooms in your house. Are lights on? Or you could even use it for controlling lights and so on if you wanted. Let's see, anything else worth mentioning on that? No, I'm going to leave it there and see if anybody has any questions, and then give Christian a chance to give us an update on PDF talk.
I have a question, if you don't mind. I have a question. So how often do you take readings, or do this is constantly reading. And then what do you do with all the data? So is it stored in the
for my weather station, I have the ESP set to sleep for 10 minutes, wake up, take a reading, and then connect to it, the MQTT broker, and send their data. Because for weather stuff, any more than 10 minutes is pointless. And to be honest, it should probably be half an hour. An interesting side issue there is, because I made little 3D printed boxes to put the ESP and its temperature humidity sensor chip in, if you do what seems like the obvious thing of wake up, connect to MQTT broker, take the temperature reading, it's actually incorrect, because the chipset will have warmed up enough during the time it takes to connect to the MQTT broker to distort the temperature reading. So what you have to do is take the temperature reading first, and then connect to MQTT to send it. Otherwise, you get bad data. What I do with it, I receive it and just keep an array of instances of what do I call them? Can't even remember what they are. What I call them now? Sensor data points. I have an array of different classes of these data point objects, and then display them in a simple plot morph setup. And then every now and again, I just run something that truncates the list of data points that I've collected. And yes, I really should get round to storing the data in Magma or something and automating it all. But, you know, it works well enough, and life comes along and work comes along, and so you don't do all the things that you really should. It would be lovely to make a much better job of a lot of this stuff. Compute usage wise, I noticed that when a bunch of readings come in, the Pi's CPU meter goes up from 3% to 4% for a few seconds. So it's clearly not taking much compute power to deal with any of it.
For your sensors, do they use battery or?
The ones I've got, the little MQTTs, yes, you can run them off, I think, those little coin cells for quite some time. But all the ones I've got are actually plugged into old salvaged old cell phone chargers.
Right. Okay.
So basically, they dangle off the cell phone charger on the end of a very short USB cable.
Okay. So it is conceivable, though, to run some of these as sort of battery devices in
I'm told that
hard
if
places.
you're careful about it, you can actually make them run for 6 months.
That's pretty cool.
At the end of the garden kind of thing.
Right.
I've read of people using the general idea of the ESP and so on for doing that, for things like monitoring their hen house at the end of the garden and changing the batteries once or twice a year.
Cool.
So they're pretty good for that.
So we're sort of approaching the end of the 10 minutes here. I didn't start my timer quite right, but any last question, or should we move on to, I think we said Christian was going to do a little update on PDF talk. Yep. Okay, cool.
I want to ask if Tim has looked at, there's supposed to be a new standard called Matter that used to be called CHIP. And it's sort of
I've read of it. I haven't had time to learn anything about it. I've got to sometime, because my house runs on something called Insteon smart home hardware, and they've just gone bankrupt. So at some point I've got to work out how to swap all that out, and yeah.